These glaciers in the Swiss Alps used to be covered in snow, but after another hot summer, they're melting fast. They have already lost 4% of their entire volume over the course of this year. Last year, they lost 6% in what was the worst melt rate since records began more than a century ago.
After this record year last year, we didn't expect to see again such a year with very strong losses. And this is really absolutely unprecedented. And every time I'm coming back to this site, I'm wondering again, what is happening here? Because it's changing so fast, the landscape is changing, new rocks are appearing, everything is becoming grey and dark.
Matthias Huss and his team from the Swiss glacier monitoring network Glaciers have been measuring the loss of ice in Switzerland at an altitude of 3,000 meters. They found that in the past 2 years alone, the Swiss glaciers have lost as much ice volume as they did between 1960 and 1990.
The summer was much too warm and we lost at this position more than 2 meters of ice. And this is a lot, especially considering that we are at the highest point of the glacier. We're not at the low-lying terminus, but high up, where the glacier actually should accumulate some new mass.
The reason for this ice loss is that there wasn't enough snowfall in winter. Then came an extremely hot summer, where temperatures in Switzerland were 1.2 degrees Celsius above normal levels in August, making it one of the 10 warmest Augusts on record. In the mountains, a new all-time high of 31.5 degrees Celsius was recorded.
As long as we continue to burn fossil fuels, these events will become more and more frequent.
Glaciers play an irreplaceable role in the natural world. They sustain life, replenish ecosystems, and provide fresh water to humans and wildlife alike. Researchers estimate that glacier melting globally has contributed to roughly 21% of observed sea level rise, threatening to displace millions by the end of the century. Under current warming trends, 2/3 of Earth's glaciers may vanish by 2100.
Well, for more now, I'm joined by Katrin Zedelmeier. She's a climatologist working for the Deutsche Wetterdienst. That's the German meteorological service. It's good to have you with us. These numbers of the glacier melting, I mean, they're shocking. I guess they shouldn't be, but they are. The Alpine region is warming at a quicker rate than other parts of the world. Why is that?
Well, one reason is that the landmass generally warm faster than the oceans because water can absorb more of the incoming heat than the land. But then we also see that the temperature trends in the Alps are also higher than in adjacent land regions. And we know several mechanisms for this. Some of them are not, or the interplay is not very well understood, but what fits very well to the temperature increase since the 1980s that we observe is also an observed increase in sunshine duration. So we have more incoming radiation, which leads to more warming. And this effect is also locally increased by or enhanced by the snow albedo feedback. So if you have white snow, it reflects a lot more of the incoming radiation than if you have bare ground. And with increased warming, we have less snow cover, or as snow melts earlier in spring, and thus we have less radiation which is reflected and more which can warm the ground. So we have this enhanced feedback mechanism of warming, which actually also accelerates the melting and then the warming again.
Can we expect to see further warming in the Alps? I mean, and I'm wondering what that's going to lead to. I mean, I've seen predictions that it won't be that long until we're going to have winters where, the ski slopes will only be able to provide ski in very, skinny areas, and that will be artificial snow.
Yeah, so even if we stop emitting now, we will still experience further warming in the next decades because the climate system responds slower or with a time lag to the emissions. And how much, so how serious this warming is and how big the impacts are depends largely on how much and how fast we are able to globally reduce our emissions. So the projections for the Alps predict temperature rises between 1 to 5 degrees till the end of the century compared to the 1980s to 2010 of this century. So that's a big range, and it depends a lot on how we act now, which of these it will be, and this the impacts largely depends on how much warming we will see in the Alps. So there's a big span. So what we will expect is, of course, what we do expect is less snow, especially in the lower regions, melting of glaciers, thawing of permafrost, and also strong effects on biodiversity.
Yeah, you know, we've been talking a lot about extreme weather events this year. Just this week, we've been talking about the torrential rainfall, flooding in Greece. I'm just wondering, when it comes to the Swiss Alps and these glaciers, is there anything that we can do to prevent, I guess, the more extreme warming in that region that we are seeing? I mean, we're on a trajectory right now, if I understand you right, that no matter what we do, we will have to accept and adapt to a certain amount of further warming, right?
Yes, and the only measure we can have is a comprehensive reduction in global greenhouse gases, because it doesn't really matter where you emit. So the local effects do not depend on the local emissions. So it's really, we have to have a global reduction in greenhouse gas emission, and this would greatly curb the warming and also the effects and the impacts. So we will have effects, but if we're at the lower range of this projected temperature increase, we will have less effects which we can cope with. Whereas, well, if we're at the higher range, then, for example, for the glaciers, they will not have a very bright future.
That's right. We won't have any more glaciers to talk about, that's for sure. Katrin Sedelmeier, climatologist with the German Meteorological Service. We appreciate your time tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.